Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy The Gods of Creation, written by Space Paladin 15. I spent many a night gazing up at the stars as a young boy, peering through a telescope. You could always see the outline of the Sky Palace hovering above our capital. The priests taught that this massive great disk was the home of the gods, benevolent deities who granted us their blessing in return for our worship. Few even thought to argue these teachings. After all, we could all look upon the palace with our own eyes. That was evidence enough, said the church. For who could build a fortress in the heavens except the divines? Our myths say that the gods revealed themselves to our ancestors at the beginning of our civilization. They descended from the sky to provide gifts and mortal teachings. Do unto others as you wish to be done unto you was the foremost of these rules. After, they returned to their perch in the heavens, always watching. Only the Holy Emperor had contacted them directly since the Ascension. But despite having seen their majestic home with my own eyes, I was not convinced of these creatures' divinity. Their existence was certain, but I believed that we had misjudged their nature. Before arguing that our gods were not divine, I was a prominent and respected astronomer. The church was happy to accept my calculations of the circumference of our planet, but not so happy to accept my proclamation that all phenomena had a natural explanation. It was likely that I would be executed for heresy any day now. I did not fear death. I simply wished to know the truth before I died, which is why I had snuck into the Imperial Palace, to the altar room. It was a suicidal idea to confront the gods myself, but I felt that I had nothing left to lose. The altar was on an ornate golden pedestal with black button resting on top. This was the fabled chamber where the Emperor would call on the gods to summon him. I walked up and inspected the device closely, looking for any hidden mechanisms. How would this even work? After a brief moment of hesitation, I pressed the button down with a hand. My heart rate skyrocketed as I waited, nerves nauseating me. Panic only really set in when I felt a strange tingling sensation course throughout my body. Glancing down, I saw my arms and legs disintegrating. My stomach flipped at an unnatural sight. I tried to open my mouth to scream, but I could not move. 1,000 colors flashed before my eyes as my last sliver of consciousness was sucked away. Next thing I knew, I found myself collapsed on a strange metallic floor. The coldness of it struck me immediately, causing my eyes to snap open. I double-checked each of my limbs to make sure that they were still there. I was dazed and disoriented, but otherwise unharmed. Well, you're not Emperor Dolan. First trip is always rougher. You'll be fine. Welcome aboard, a deep voice bellowed. I glanced up to find the bipedal figure with a form nearly identical to ours. The obvious difference was that rather than an azure skin like mine, he had a pale, almost white complexion, as though all of the color had been drained from his skin. The creature studied me closely. What can we do for you? Every instinct in my body screamed at me to beg for forgiveness and ask to return home. Whatever these things were, good or not, they had the power well beyond our own. What I had just experienced made me wonder if I had made a grave error in judgment. But my voice was somehow steady and confident as I said, I don't believe your gods. I met the pale being's eyes, wondering if he would smite me on the spot. Perhaps he would vaporize me for non-belief with a snap of the fingers, or worse, inflict torture beyond what I could imagine. But his reaction was not at all what I expected. He laughed softly and extended a hand to help me up. Finally! That's what we've been trying to tell your leaders for centuries. I accepted his hand and rose to my feet. Wait, you admit it? What are you then? Please, I want to understand. I will answer all of your questions, he replied. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Nathan. What's your name? Kashev. Nathan smiled. Well, Kashev, you are correct. We are not gods. We are mortals just as you are. We love, we live, we hate, we die. We call ourselves humans, and we are born on a planet like yours that we call Earth. Earth revolves around a different sun, a star very far away. An awe-struck look crossed my face. How is that possible? How are you here? We devoted ourselves to science. We sought to understand the forces of the universe. As you build ships to sail your seas with steam engines, we built engines powerful enough to sail the skies. A starship. The more I listened to Nathan talk, the more I became aware of how brilliant these people were. Their innovations were somehow more impressive with the knowledge that they were mortal. To think that these humans had found a way to travel through the stars. What an enterprising lot they must be. He paused, as if considering his next words. At heart, our kind are adventurers, but driven by loneliness as much as curiosity. We pushed on because we feared being the only ones. There had to be others like us out there. Or so we thought. But the stars were barren and empty, void of all life. We searched every corner of the universe, no stone left unturned. Humanity is older than you can comprehend. The search continued for errors, even after every galaxy had been charted. But all of this just led us to find that we were utterly and truly alone. The cosmic irony was not lost on us. It was nature's cruel joke that we would call into an empty void. So we stared at the bleak reality of our universe in the face, and rather than call it quits, we looked nature in the eyes and said, no. If we could not find others, we would make them ourselves. Our best and brightest minds were tasked with your creation. We made you unique, better than us even, and we altered this world to be a place that you could live. We wanted you to do things on your own, so that your society could have its own identity. But we helped speed up your development, and we tried to teach you to live righteously, so that you would not make our mistakes. Humanity was always watching, always caring for you. You are our children. My entire worldview changed drastically after that first meeting. His monologue was etched into my memory. If they could accomplish so much as a species, it meant that we could too. The very definition of what was possible within the bounds of science had shifted. With the help of our watchful human guardians, I was certain that the stars were within our grasp. If only we were to reach up and touch them. The crew was all too eager to befriend me, and I was permitted to stay aboard the ship as long as I liked. I witnessed technological marvels beyond my wildest imagination and learned of their culture. I recorded my experience through detailed notes, logging what I observed for posterity. Hours turned to days, then days turned to months. I was ready to return to my people, to share the knowledge I'd gained. Nathan, who I had taken to calling captain as his crew did, offered to accompany me so that I would not be executed on sight. The dematerialization of my body felt as strange on the return trip, but at least it was not surprising this time. In a heartbeat, I found myself back at the altar in the palace. We strolled with purpose through the cavernous halls. The closer we got to the throne room, the more guards we found on patrol. Recognizing the deity of myth at my side, reactions varied from shock to terror. Most dropped to their knees, and none dared to challenge our approach. A set of towering gold-plated doors marked the end of the road. We pushed them open. This was it, the audience with the Emperor and his court. His Majesty was an unassuming man, short in stature and simple in appearance. But there was a certain regality in the way he carried himself. The royal leader's eyes fixed first on the Captain Nathan, and then on me. His countenance turned to a skull in an instant. You're that scientist who attacked the church! Emperor Dolan turned his attention to the human. My lord, I am so sorry for this heretic slander and unbelief. I assure you, we will punish him to the highest degree of the law. Dathan waved his hand dismissively. Punish him? Please do not. He speaks the truth. A series of gasps echoed through the chamber. The Emperor shared a glance with his advisers, as though certain that he had misheard the human. My lord, not to question your divine knowledge, but you realize this man has claimed that you are not gods. Dathan chuckled. Yes, and I'm inclined to agree with him. Keshev can explain things, perhaps better than I. Please listen to what he has to say. All eyes turned towards me. Words would not do the human justice, but I hoped that I could convey the truth and the wonder of it all. I understand more now than I did when I looked up with skeptical eyes. They would tell you themselves they are not gods. They are human. But after seeing their greatest marvels up close, I know it is not that simple. These are a people who built wings of steel to travel the heavens and boxes of lightning to communicate instantly across any distance. They stare death and nature in the face, and they laugh because they know they can cheat both of them. Most importantly, they shaped us from dust. The humans were not born gods, but through their creation, they have become them. End of story. The algorithm reckons you should be watching this video next, and I recommend that you should be always watching my video. So, click with energy! And yes, clicking that does help the channel. Thank you very much. I just want to give a quick thanks to the Tier 5 patrons and channel members. Alithia, Barky, Fudic Yol, Cam Maxwell, Casper Onholtz, White Band 420, Lord Asrakal, Arcalian, and Oakfield.